Hello everyone, welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's what is this? This is our Broiler Chicken Show. Buck. Hooray! Welcome back to looks like YouTube's rocking and rolling. It is the day of superness in the United States of America, Super Bowl Sunday. Big football game here. I guess it's 6 o'clock Eastern time, 3 o'clock Pacific. I think I have the time right. Of course, they're in the pre-game show right now. So hopefully we can tear you away from the screen for a few minutes. Talk a little crypto here today. Because of the festivities today, I actually have the timer set. When you start hearing beeping going off in the background, Brian's got to hit the road. So only about a half hour, 45-minute offering here today. But nonetheless, I like to be consistent, reliable, dependable, all the ibbles that Lister used to hate. I thought, it's good form to at least do something here for the public here today. This is our weekend show, which primarily means what I usually like to do while the school is in session is give students the opportunity to do follow-up questions to their class. They had a great session this morning with the Wookiee and talking fundamental analysis, trying to figure out what kind of asset they're actually trading. Where does their asset fall in the sort of the universe of analyzable assets? And so based on where it falls, you should be thinking about what are sort of industry norms. Within the classic commodity sector, think of all your agricultural commodities, all your industrial commodities. Basically, value is the cost of production. What does it cost to actually produce the darn commodity? And quite often, if you have an opportunity of being able to buy or invest in that asset below the cost of production, when some sort of crisis comes along and people start freaking out and prices start getting bid up, of course, that's a profit opportunity for fundamentalists. I think you could make the argument that a lot of pharmaceutical stocks within the vaccine sector are seeing exactly that right now. But that's another conversation for another day. Primarily cryptocurrency oriented. I know, a big part of our audience is cryptocurrency centric. How do you figure out fundamental value for these ideas? Oh boy, that's a question I've been sort of mulling around for the past 4 or 5 years on my own as a student of the market, trying to figure this out. I think to a certain degree, when you have names that are quote-unquote proof of work within this space, you can start thinking about what does that work actually mean. And if I understand correctly, the work is simply validating the ledger that we're all passing around that's sort of trying to note who's got what. And in cryptocurrency land, we call that mining. Which really, everybody listening to that term, it shouldn't surprise you. Gee whiz, mining? Is there some other industry that uses a similar expression? Right? What was Satoshi thinking when he... and in fact, actually, he even said himself, when price was melting down last year, we were throwing all these tweets out, costs of commodities. Even Satoshi himself said that they tend to gravitate towards the cost of production. So, within an evolving space, it doesn't surprise me whatsoever that fundamental value comes into question. And fundamentally unvaluable assets get bid up in frenzies of over exuberance. And I would have to say to a certain degree that that's exactly what happened through that sort of 2017 melt up, where people kind of threw fundamental valuations out the window. I remember we had one student, and very, very smart gentleman within the industry, and every time they took the market up another sort of stair step higher in valuations, he'd have to go in and change his, okay, well, we used to like coins that were like a $500,000 market cap. Now we like coins that are $5 million market cap. Okay, well, now we like coins that are 50 million. And it's like, oh boy. And actually, it reminds me what I saw happen there through the crypto blow off top there through 2017 reminded me a lot of the dot-com boom blow off top, and how fundamental valuation experts, quote unquote, had to change their story to keep justifying fundamental value. And they started to use different metrics, and oh no, classic PE ratios, that doesn't matter in this space because we're going to keep growing indefinitely. So is there a magic formula to figure out fundamental value on something like a proof of stake coin? I'm not quite sure there has actually been an answer to that question. And of course, I know a lot of people in this space, when they look at a name like Ripple, for example, that's been massively pre-mined. We had a really interesting conversation in the lounge on TRI recently. Do you want to be buying the Ripple coin as an investment itself? Or is that sort of like a mechanism? And do we maybe want to be trying to invest in the Ripple company, the entity? Is that entity going to grow? And can you find value there? And if they do like a share offering, we were sort of throwing that about. And how would you figure out how to try and figure out what a value proposition on something like investing in this Ripple concept? It's an interesting debate, and frankly speaking, I don't think anybody has actually come up with the answer in altcoin land for fundamental value, other than, of course, Bitcoin maximalists will say, yeah, the value is zero. So this is, as rational investors, we would ideally like to try and invest in names that have some sort of fundamental value, and we can sort of mark what value is. In the stock market, for example, when I was an old penny stockbroker, I actually had the privilege, I was so lucky, just before the floor of the stock exchanges started to get closed there in the late 90s, I had the privilege of working with a bunch of the VSE floor brokers. In fact, my first sort of real office job in the industry with Richardson Greenshields back in the early 90s was actually to help a lot of the floor brokers that were transitioned off of the floor from the Vancouver Stock Exchange. And they didn't know how to operate in an office environment. And they're all like, what the hell? Well, there's rules we got to follow here? Come on. I got to wear pants to work? What, are you crazy? So one of the models that was taught to me by an old VSE floor broker is this idea of trying to figure out value in the venture capital space. And actually, like I said, the level oneers are going through a value models, and so I thought I'd just take a moment and just talk to you a little bit. Of course, we all look at the chart, and everybody goes, well, okay, I can completely understand why that Beamish guy's coming in here. I mean, look at this ski slope, right? And that's the irony of it all, is that after a while, you're going to see that all I do is I buy down markets. That's what I do. And I sell up markets. But this is a good example. of not only the chart looks agreeable, W's and RSIs and MACD bottoms, and OBVs looking relatively attractive. But also, too, there we have a whole bunch of fundamental markers that have happened on this stock over the past 6 months that actually tell you about value within the penny stock market business. So I do like the fact that and the odds of success go way, way up. I mean, I think like 2 or 3 years ago we had, and I don't even know what the stock is doing these days. And actually, it was funny because this was a stock, actually, a gentleman who took our education program years ago. He was in the education program, and just like I showed you, that TELO, this stock did all that fundamental criteria that I just showed you. So you can see the share rollback and all that right through here. And of course, look what the damn thing did on the other side of it. So this is why, and I think I was saying earlier, we had a student who actually took this trade, and he's like, well, I don't know, I'm taking this Beamish guy's course. He seems to like this stock. And he turned on his computer one day, and he's like, what the fuck's going on here? So, and actually, I got a tweet from him today. I don't really want to show his name because he's a very shy gentleman, but he even said, you've taught me very well, and actually it ties right into exactly what we're seeing in the Bitcoin price right now. So here's a good example of why I like fundamental screeners in the stock market. This model was taught to me by an old floor broker years and years and years ago. Just as you saw in that ML, that's usually the end result of these funny little ones. In fact, actually, there was one that I did last year that was exactly the same thing on this, and actually it treated me pretty well. What the hell's the damn symbol? I thought it was ABM. Of course, that's half the problem with me, is I own so much of everything that half the time I don't even keep track of it. Where are you? Well, I'm wasting time here. I'm talking stock, and I should be talking AMI. That's what it was. So this is one that did the same thing last year. No, is that it? Yeah, and I guess we got in down here. Aerial mineral metals. That doesn't sound right. Anyway, I'm wasting time here. Sorry, guys. It's this guy. Yeah, there we are. So this is one that we did last year, same sort of model. And good example of why you got to take profits on the way up and pay yourself. You might even, if you play VSE penny stocks and you're interested in getting into the cement business, you might want to take a look at that one. Anyway, let's head on over to crypto, and that's really the whole point of today's conversation here with you guys. I think this is actually, well, where do I want to start this with you guys? Where should we start this? Once upon a time in a land far, far away, Philby, and actually it's kind of funny, I was seeing tweets from him. It turns out I'm not the only person that gets his name wrong. There are other people that are like, what the hell is that guy's, what is his handle? But anyway, I mean, learn it, live it, love it. His yellow lines for the win. I actually don't mind this kind of thinking here whatsoever. Sure feels like we're playing yellow, purple line ping pong, which would imply a nice serious test of the upside here heading into the spring and summer. Like I think we saw in previous years gone by. This is kind of what my thinking is right now as we sort of walk our way along, banging our way between these 2 points. There was another gentleman that I think I always get his name wrong, but I always say, what's his name? And you guys correct me, but I think it's Benjamin, I think his name is. I think he had these bit wider bands. I think on balance, if you just sort of, force yourself that when we get down near the bottom end of these growth curves, just be thinking, number one, really, I think the good sort of way to think about studies like this is ask yourself, when we start hitting these bands, what's the public thinking? when we got down to this yellow line last year, what was the public thinking? And then when we got up to this purple line last summer, which is very typical. I mean, one thing I will say, I believe crypto is extremely seasonal. What was the public thinking? And, coming in through the fall, I think I had on here, I would have preferred that we dip down into 78.6s. Good analogy here. Of course, the market doesn't give a shit what I think. And in comes the W, and we start climbing the wall of worry here. We do have big fundamental events ahead of us, so I think it makes sense. We should have been thinking uppy. I think I had on a really cool sort of, where did I put that? Yeah, right here. Oh, holy busy charts, eh, Batman? Jesus. It's getting a little bit trafficy. We talked lots recently about, does it make sense that we're seeing a bit of resistance up in here? I think so. Makes sense to me. Havoting event, I think, middle of May. I think I have this on here on my birthday, so I've often noticed that crypto's actually usually kind of soft into my birthday. So having an event around then, and usually the market likes to top about a month ahead of that event. I'll tell you guys, she sure has a head of steam behind her, doesn't she? We had just off of like lower time frames, we were talking, I think over the past few days. I don't know whether you can see that. Yeah. Megaphones. And I think I've said to you guys before, I've seen this happen lots of times, where we actually can walk our way along this megaphone top here. I've seen that happen so many times. And you're like, what the hell's the trend? Why is it doing this? It just keeps grinding higher and higher and higher, and it just walks its way along this megaphone. I mean, I suppose there's some people that are going, well, technically you could draw that all the way up there, which is painting up here. I'm inclined to think this, but nonetheless, if you thought in fact, why don't we put both of them on? Let's get crazy. All right, so really, I would argue there's sort of upside resistance, that window up in there. And actually, I was looking at just a side-by-side daily, weekly Bitcoin. What did I do with that? Oh, darn. Anyway, I was quite surprised. Maybe I had it over here. No. I was quite surprised at how strong the weekly chart looks. Let's see if... Oh, actually, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's try that again. Okay, I've only got 45 minutes. Quit wasting time here, Brian. What do I want to do here? I had this chart all set up perfectly, but oh well, I screwed it up. Okay, so let's go maybe over here. We'll go make a copy. So what I'm a little worried about here, just in the short term, is the market in the short term, to me, looks like it's trying to trap people up here. But if you look off the weekly time frame, gee whiz, looks insanely bullish. Sorry, everyone. Wasting your time. Okay, let's see if we can get our head on straight here. All right. So I have been hearing a lot of sort of people going, I'm looking for tops here, and maybe we're gonna head and shoulders and break down and stuff. But this weekly chart, Jesus H Christ, that looks bullish. W's in OBV, so the path of least resistance definitely is up right now. MACD had that cute little divergence off the weekly charts, and remember I told you the guy who bought that lithium stock, he was coming out last year and publicly saying, "Hey, people, pay attention to these divergences." I don't know how many people actually listened to him, but gee whiz, that sure was right there. So a little bit of a div that came in there, I guess, about a month or so ago, is sort of telling us, "Hey, pay attention." So learn that stuff, people. Super, super powerful. Interesting how Willie never did get stupid. We got down to 78.23. So close. But again, look at these little W's. W, W, W. So what I'm sort of seeing is the daily chart is, it's nothing to write home about. And of course, you look at that move and you go, gee whiz, that sure is a long move. But this weekly chart just looks stunningly powerful. So I don't, what has to happen here is we have to have some sort of, blow off top, sort of like, wow, everybody goes, woo, right? And then the public's all, Bitcoin's the best, oh, we love you. And then that sort of marks some sort of pivot. I used to, when I studied MACD really closely over the years, what I noticed is MACD moves often like to come in 4s, 8s, 12s. So, if we think about this weekly chart and we see the breakout level right here. So we go 1, 2, 3, so to a pivot. 3, 4, that's close. Maybe we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight up. So 4s, 8s, 12s. You can see the momentum top from here, right? So broke down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's close to 8. And then, even further, so 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 kind of idea. So, we've been pushing up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, 7, 8 kind of idea. I don't see anything here saying, I definitely don't see anything like this. There's no divergence here off weekly charts. So, at the very least, we actually have to start seeing some backfilling here to actually say, okay, you know what, let's cool our jets. Now, at the same time, too, where was price at that high? So that was way up here, we could very easily explore all the way right up top here on this weekly chart. This is I gotta tell you, man, that's one hell of a looking chart. Remember I showed you about a week or two ago, I showed you the daily breakout through the 50 line and all that kind of conversation, and went, wow, don't get in front of that thing. Should be interesting to see on the weekly chart where our RSI and our little RSI study is sort of sitting there. That might be kind of fun to look at. So, really good example here of 1M, right? And then second M. Now, where the hell is the 50 line? It's way down there. So we didn't really crap out in earnest until all the way down here. Probably a little late to be thinking about coming in, but definitely like that M up top there. And then the second M kind of principle. The bear's driving the bus. Cute little W's, and then W's, and then W's, and then we're trying to resolve back above through 50 line. Probably pretty late, if anything. You know what this almost looks like, right? Is we go first W stops the bear. Second W, and this kind of sloppy one, I think you kind of gotta go like this. It's just kind of sloppy, but second W starts the bull run, so that's through that level there. It's not through the 50 line. 45. Anyway, bull run. Woohoo! And then I got the funny feeling we're now in that third phase. And 50 line is, where is it? It's right about here. So I could actually see a nice pullback check of that. But there's no top here, right? I mean, we don't even have anything like this at all yet. So we're in that blow off final phase. And actually, I like that. That makes sense to me. for the weekly sort of perspective. Where are we on the sort of the stages of the little mini bull here? So I would expect some sort of, this, we're in that third phase. So think of this as, very late stage of the rally. Lots of open room up here. You can see, resistance is probably up in these areas here. So, actually, well, we might see a bit of traffic around this. And the way I interpret this is on a weekly basis, we're in that third phase, but we don't have any M's or anything here on a weekly basis to tell us that the bull is even stopped. So the bull's running. It's a weekly bull, so it's within the range of a higher context. Within the context of a higher time frame ranging market. This isn't rip-roaring insano bull. The rip-roaring insano bull is off sort of lower time frames. Off the weekly basis, this is a nice up move. Right, but it's getting late in this up move. Hope that helps. Does that make sense? You guys sitting here in the lounge, does that make any sense at all? Grim, you've been around here forever. Did that just sound like a load of horse shit? Or did that make any sense at all? Anyway, Grim's our level 1 instructor, yes. Yes, makes sense. Totally makes sense. Oh, really? Okay, good. Okay, cool. Oh, so I'm not just talking gobbledygook. All right, good. So, now if we take a look at, and, if we look at the daily chart and, that gentleman, it's interesting. That gentleman, he really resonated with me. Such an interesting human being. And he actually saw this as well. And I think I even showed you this, guys, in YouTube audience off the higher time frames. No, actually, it was off a lower time frame chart, where we had like head and shoulders tops and head and shoulders bottoms battling against each other, and it just created like a, sort of almost like a midpoint fulcrum. So, just very quickly, I think it was something like through here, where we were kind of like... And I'm going somewhere with all this, people, so just hang in there. But something like that, and we're like, oh, head and shoulders, yeah, it's going down, right? And then the market goes and does this. No, it's head and shoulders going the other way, kind of thing. And woo, I don't know. I'm just eyeballing this. So I can't remember exactly how the conversation went, but something along those lines. And what really was going on here was it was just a massive fight. Actually, here, let's do this one. At like a midpoint fulcrum. We often see that in the market, and it should just simply highlight, and this is a terrible example, it's not good at all, but this is a good conversation about how markets can often fulcrum, and like you're like, oh, this is a wicked short, and I kind of got the feeling they did that to the crypto kids yesterday, and I even was questioning yesterday. I very rarely, and I would, if you're watching on YouTube, I'd write this shit down. I have very rarely ever seen Bitcoin break in earnest on a Saturday. I've almost never seen it. So when I saw the price in the market breaking yesterday morning, or I guess it was midday yesterday, I was like, wow, that's surprising. And sure enough, it was bullshit. So, but the point that I was trying to make about all this is sometimes you see that, head and shoulders, actually it turns into inverted, and really what's going on here is there just a major war at this level. And this is off lower time frame. What I thought was really cool, and again, this is a reference to this other gentleman, I've been putting these messages out, but I don't know whether they actually been resonating with the public. But clearly, there's some. I don't know whether I can get it out or not. There's a pretty darn significant level here. I mean, I was absolutely shocked, and really, what I hope you guys are seeing is, I don't know how best to show this to you, but. I guess I'll just freeform it, right? Clearly, there's something going on at this level. Like, this level here is so important. And then we lost it, and now look how the level's acting on the other side. So this is a massive fulcrum for the Bitcoin price. And that should be good, we're students of the market, whether buy, sell, hedge, whatever. I'm going to make money from trading. Just step back and see the message of the forest through the trees. What do you think the odds are we're going to revisit this level at some point in the future? I'd say probably pretty good. And, the interesting thing, a lot of futures guys will do this, is they'll sort of create this as sort of their apex, and then they'll push the market away from it, knowing it's going to come back. And then once they get everybody all bullish and they see that the book is tilted to the buy side, then they'll play the market from the other side, back and forth, back and forth. And that's sort of seeing the forest through the trees. One way to sort of help you see that is when if you can do market symmetry studies. And I put this study out it's a few weeks ago. And all you want to do is, if you do see a market tank, right, and just dump in lower highs and lower lows, and then you start to see things like divergence start to develop, just simply take your drawing tool on a site like this. There's this bar pattern. Just go off of that lowest low, especially if it's a divergence, and then just take your tool and draw it back to the most recent high. Then I just I go in here and I click the, I think it's a flip button. So now all that's done is it's just said, okay, what would be a mirror image of that, and just plunk it on top, right? And that's what this study that I put out a while ago was. And I hate to say it, guys, but this is really what I think is going to be going on here. And, in very typical Bitcoin fashion, but really also, too, I see this happen in crude all the time. Are they going to make whatever the top ultimately is? Are they going to make it pretty? Are they going to make it easy? Are they going to bring the market up here and go, all right, everybody, that little Beamish guy says, here's a nice M's are shorting, and then the market smiles at you, and it's nice, happy-go-lucky. So here you go, everybody. Here's a nice, polite shorting window, and everybody, if this is a dump, hey, you're going to make lots of money. Here you go. I'll give it to you on a nice silver platter. Nope. I can tell you that much. I mean, if we're really lucky and something like that happens, great. But 9 times out of 10, markets never give you, the top and the bottom. They're never polite like that. They're going to be like this, right? Everybody's like, okay, this is the bottom again. I'm going to buy, and then one more F you, and then that's the low. And you look back in hindsight and you go, oh, man, I wish I had bought here, right? That's exactly the game. If anything, I don't think it's a good idea to try and pick tops and bottoms, because, unfortunately, this is the 1%, So, if anything, what I'd like people to do is sort of think, again, sort of forest through the trees, that big important level. If we just here, we see that 50% of this move, 10,165 here, if that is the right number. I don't know if it's accurate. There is that important level, and gee whiz, here we are. And if we're thinking sort of head and shoulders is what could this ultimately look like? The problem here is, can you come in on the buy side right here? I don't know. You're coming to the party really late, right? The party was down here. And I remember, this right here, that mark right there was like a 61.8 perfect mountain man tag after like a AB equals CD. It was just, oh my God. Traders got to trade candle body lows. And you can even see I had little notations exactly where the market turned here. That was, and always when you look back in hindsight, you're always like, oh yeah, that was the bottom. That was easy. But I think that was the trade. So here we are way up here. We've climbed that wall of worry with Wyckoff checks the whole way along. you can come in and buy here if you want, but just understand that, this is Bitcoin. Bitcoin loves this kind of stuff. They're going to suck everybody in on the long side. That's going to be like, woohoo! So if you got balls of steel and you want to try and play this, okay, great. But just understand, in this kind of environment, this is the kind of market activity that you have to expect, right? This kind of stuff. Market's heading higher, and all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, they just pull the floor out from underneath the market. And in a weird sort of way, I think that's what they did first thing Saturday morning as well. What ideally, when you see a pattern that looks like this is what I like to call a diamond pattern. It's interesting how, off of that high 38.2, a guy I used to work with years ago, Ray Burchett, he used to always say, don't trust the market until it's resolved through the 38.2 hiccup. So in a weird sort of way, and sadly, the diamond is so big, and think 1% and how they freeze the public out, that I actually think that this is our trading range, and we can't really decide which way this thing's going to go until this range has actually been resolved. And you can see they're just having a field day in here. Got everybody all bearish, and no, now they're going to get everybody all bullish. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody does for certain. But just understand, if you are hunting long setups, if anything, what I would say in this kind of environment is, if you're hunting long setups, maybe put your entry at where your stop would be, because everybody else is in the market is going to see the W's, and they're all going to go long on the W's. They're going to place their stop just below the W's, and the jerks are going to come along and they're going to wash the lows of the W's, because this is an extremely overbought market, and we've gone one directional for quite a ways here. And especially like Forex trading, I used to see that all the time. And we just say, and that we actually created a setup on the site called the SFU. Sebastian won't fill in the rest. You can use your imagination. And it was basically built around that concept that let's, instead of being the public and getting stopped out at the levels that probably a lot of the public are seeing, let's actually buy at those levels and wait for the FU move to actually get our fill. So that's the kind of environment that I think we're in right now up top here. Be careful. This very late in this move. As opposed to trading Bitcoin and trying to clip it here and there, and, for whatever it's worth, I'll be sort of watching for bots, 3 higher lows. We've got this one key low that was just put in with a huge tail. So I'm in no hurry to hunt a new long setup here off lower time frames. But while that's going on and the market's still pointing higher and the sentiment is still positive, can you make money in other altcoins? Well, I think so. We ironically enough, I actually, and very typical, I mean, I see this all the time, year in, year out. I think the trade that's going to make the most money on the sort of big ones is good old Litecoin. Damn thing bottomed at $40. It's already approaching 70. So Bitcoin bottomed at 7. It's only at 9 and change. So Charlie's the man once again. And I still think she's working her way higher. I'm in on the Ethereum trade. And if anything, here is such a good example where we were able to sneak in off the bottom and sell half on a double on our options trade. And we don't even give a crap what happens now. Moves to new highs. What do you think? Are our options going up in value? The risk-free trade? I'd say so. But the point here is, ironically enough, as Bitcoin's coming into resistance here, there are actually other names that are just turning the corner now. So keep your eyes peeled. It's never a dull moment. Follow price action. You have your reasons to justify you acting. In altcoin land, a couple of recent ones that we picked up. I bought this strat, and I did see somebody, and it kind of confused me a little bit, but somebody on the free show that I did, I think on Friday or something, just said I was coming in and just buying against these. Please understand, everybody. Number one, I am not recommending or shilling you to do any of the trades that I comment about on these videos. Not a single one. I don't give a rat's ass if you buy any of the ideas that I tout or talk about. I don't care, and I'm not going to take personal offense. Please understand there is no shill here whatsoever. Really, what I just want to make money from trading. So the fact that I do these videos, I think, is just an added bonus. Here's a name. And then the second point I should make here is I am not a fundamental expert on these cryptocurrencies. I will never bill myself as that. I love price charts, and there are names that I do like. Somebody was telling, and I think it was a comment because I happened to buy Mona, and I love Mona. Mona's treated me so well over the years. And I generated another risk-free position here on this. And I think somebody's like, you're shilling scam coins and all that. I'm not shilling anything here. I now have a risk-free trade on Mona. Mona might be a total scam coin. I don't know. But the long and short of it here now, the position that I have on this coin, it's risk-free. I have no risk to it. That's what I want to create. And if these guys become the next, Amazon or whatever in the next economic cycle, you just don't know. I mean, I remember back in the 90s, people are like, you're naming your company Amazon? What? What the hell is that? But the irony of it all is more colorful, crazy marketing and naming of your brand, right? The more unique you are. And I love Mona. Mona is very popular in Japan. And Hello Kitty and all that. So I don't know. It might be a scam coin. I don't know. All I know is I got a free position on these coins for the rest of my life. I'm okay with that. So point that I would just make, obviously you can't come in on the buy side on a name like this. So are there any names that are sort of bumping along the bottoms end of their ranges and I might be buying? And here's one that I bought recently. I mean, everybody should look at this and go, yeah, okay. Well, it kind of makes sense why that Beamish guy is coming in on the buy side here. If this thing does double you out here, then it's almost like, putting the position on here, and I have to babysit. I have to watch it. I have to have alerts. If she can actually go and double bottom out here and start actually accepting higher, then I don't have to babysit so much. And we'll just let it breathe a little bit. But right now, just strapped it on. Actually, I'm very proud of this trade because this is exactly what I want you guys to try and see me do. Is reload zones, market comes back down, puts in gaps, fills in gaps, puts in empires off of levels. Have you ever heard Beamish talk about 78.6s? And I just pulled the trigger without reservation. So we'll see how it goes. Only time will tell. I'm sure by the time when I come back from Liam this afternoon, this thing will be back below 3,000. But anyway, point of the matter here is this is something I'm buying. I have no idea. Could be a total scam coin. Brian, I don't take a hell of a lot of risk on these ideas. I think it's okay to do some FA. I don't mind the FA that I see here, but that's just me. All right? And of course, do your own due diligence. If the name doesn't speak to you, don't buy it. Right? So I'd sort of pointed out that I think I even put a tweet out sort of saying that I don't know where the hell the damn Twitter feed is here. What do I got to do? Library? Just basically saying things like this appears to be a friendly market. I'm not going to fight it. Ooh, look at that. Great exit. So this appears to be a friendly market. I'm not going to fight this. I'm going to trade my setups. I'm going to live with the results. And, this is what I'm doing right now. So as you can hear, it's time for me to head off to the boy. It was a short session today. Sure hope you got some value out of all that. Have yourselves a great one. All the best. And who should we root for? Go Chiefs? Problem is, I don't know whether you guys know the Super Bowl indicator, But we used to follow a Super Bowl indicator, and you can hear that timer's like, shut up, Ryan. But Super Bowl indicator, I think we actually by default have to root for the NFC. But considering the way the January barometer acted, I got a funny feeling Kansas City's going to win. So there you go. Brian's made the call. As the January barometer says that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win. All right, guys, have yourselves a great day. All the best, and bye for now.